I've played a lot of games in my 26 years on this earth. Probably more than any one person should. I vividly remember loading up Pokemon Yellow on my Game Boy Color and starting a journey that would last me from my childhood into my adult life. However, I find myself concerned for the future because games are worse than they've ever been. I'm Ouroboros. Let's talk. I know that graphics aren't everything. If you take a look at my channel, it should be pretty obvious that the lesser hardware of the Switch doesn't bother me. In spite of that, games look so good now. In 25 years, we've gone from this to this. That's staggering progress. I know this isn't just limited to games. Tech has made astonishing progress. Man stepped on the moon only 66 years after their first flight. And that computer that landed the Apollo mission, which took up an entire room, I may add, is significantly more obsolete than what's in our pockets. I know that's a bit of a side tangent, but it illustrates just how far we've come. It does seem like we're kind of at the peak of traditional gaming graphics. The difference between console generations is relatively minimal now, and putting models on top of motion capture performances is creating more and more realistic animations. Studios have been using this crazy hardware to create some of the most amazing worlds for us to play in. Yet, in spite of all of this, games feel more visually broken than ever before. Even some games I love, like Xenoblade 2, run horribly on Switch. Digital Foundry said that the resolution can get as low as 368p in portable mode. This game released in 2017. Stuff like this is really not acceptable. Or look at things like the new Pokemon releases, which look straight up like GameCube games. Not even good ones like the Prime games, just bad GameCube games. Throw on top of that Mass Effect Andromeda's, well, everything. And there's just so much disappointment in what should be the most technically sound generation of games. I think a lot of that comes down to how bloated the whole industry has gotten. Take a look at this past year of layoffs. In 2023, over 10,000 people in the industry were let go, and over 8,000 were laid off by March of this year. It's unacceptable that an industry that generates $180 billion per year, which is more than movies and music combined, by the way, can rationalize this. It seems like in spite of games costing $70 now, every game is loaded with microtransactions, and the overworking of employees that companies would be able to, sustain themselves. And speaking of microtransactions, it feels like every day games are moving closer and closer to a free-to-play model without actually being free-to-play. I mean, do you guys remember the Star Wars Battlefront 2 fiasco? Imagine what would have happened if everybody had just accepted that. We'd probably be living in a free-to-play world for most AAA developers. And speaking of free-to-play, I hate that term because every single free-to-play game is just pay to win, or worse, just gambling. These games dominate the mobile market, so good luck trying to find a traditional single-purchase game on the app or Play Store. It's just so frustrating. And it doesn't help that it feels like games as a service seem to dominate the development sphere. Every company is trying to get their hands on our money by making these types of games. Yeah, sometimes these games are great, but most of the time they fall flat on their face. Suicide Squad, The Avengers, Anthem, and even The Division to some extent. In the eyes of corporate executives, these were all supposed to be the next big thing. Yet when they inevitably fail, they just try again. Then they produce massively profitable and well-respected single-player games like Hogwarts Legacy, and they decide to double down on their efforts. It's baffling to me that most companies just don't want to make single-player games anymore. You've got some holdouts like Nintendo for sure, but for the most part, it feels like everything is online now. Of course, you'll have to pay for that too. Why would you be able to use the internet that you already paid for free? I just miss when companies paid AAA money for a one-and-done experience. Maybe I just can't find them anymore because of all of the overwhelming amount of shovelware that gets thrown in our faces. Steam, the eShop, all that stuff is great. But my god, there's just so much garbage. So many random, low-effort, low-budget, low-quality games. Because of the massive amount of games and amount of games that come out in a broken state, I feel like I can't trust anything that I'm shopping for now. Part of the problem is that I don't really feel like I'm owning games anymore. We've seen it with streaming companies. Everything is now a subscription. Owning a game feels more like owning a license to the game. Digital ownership of games is getting closer to becoming at the discretion of the publisher and the distributor. Even physical games aren't necessarily free from this. Some games are now online only, so as soon as the servers shut down, poof, there goes all of your stuff. This goes hand in hand with my frustration with the lack of single-player options. If everything is online and everything is multiplayer, at some point, that game will literally become useless. I'm not saying that everyone is going to be playing those games all the time, but I, like many other people, enjoy revisiting old games from time to time. I'm afraid that in the future, that just won't be an option. I'm spending so much money and the risk of getting burned is getting higher and higher. That's not even taking into consideration things like pre-orders, pre-order bonuses, collector's editions, retailer-specific bonuses, timed exclusives, all that stuff. So what happens is that I just end up sticking to the games that I own, not wanting to move on to new experiences because of comfort. I know people are optimistic about the future. It's only natural to be excited about the possibility of the unknown. But I can't help but feel a sense of unease about where we are, about where we can go. I feel like we're at a bad point right now. There haven't been many technological leaps over the past console generation, so it seems like we stagnated. In spite of the crazy amount of tech stuffed into consoles and PCs, we're still getting games that run poorly. At the same time, you've got games running great, so it shows that the environment of the games industry is in trouble. There's so many predatory practices. Developers are being underpaid, overworked, or even gotten rid of in some cases. Games are becoming too massive to fail, and because of that, the monetization has been forced to pick up the slack. The amount of times I've seen a pop-up for a DLC, or a cosmetic, or an ad for a mobile gacha game is absurd. I just want to enjoy the experience without feel like I'm being milked. And I'm so afraid of trying new things because I, like the rest of us, have been burned time and time again. It's things like that that make me worried. It's things like Battlefront 2 that make me worried. It's things like mobile games being massive cash cows that make me worried. They make me realize that, yeah, we might be in trouble because games are worse than they've ever been. Thanks for watching.